Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your hosts for the evening. From KSTP Channel 5 News, Leah McLean and Bill Lunn.
For more than a half-century, Dean Borg has graced the television airwaves in Iowa, covering everything from tornadoes in Charles City to the jungles of Vietnam and the Paris peace talks. But Borg found a longtime home at Iowa Public Television and the political roundtable program, Iowa Press.
I think that Iowans, and they have repeatedly told me over the years, the guests that we've had on are so informative to let them know what the different sides of each issue is in the Iowa legislature. And that's what we wanted to do on Iowa Press, is to go beyond sound bites and to expose issues and the different reasoning behind each side of a controversial issue. I think there's no better place to cover politics than Iowa, other than Washington, D.C., because this is where it all begins, the presidential politics. And you get into Iowa, all the people who are just dipping their toes, their political toes, into the possibility of running for higher office.
Iowa Press, Sunday, March 2nd, with guest Jimmy Carter, former governor of Georgia.
Among caucus goers, you still hear the reservations of perhaps a lack of experience in other things. That's a matter of resume. Either it's there or it's not. So how do you explain that?
If they want somebody who's been in Washington a long time, I'm obviously not their choice. There are folks who've been there 30 years.
What they should watch for is, are the reporters unbiased? Number one. Are those questions fair? I don't mean catering to whomever the guest is, but are they fair and don't come into it with a seeming agenda?
For our news panel, I'm Dean Borg. Have a good week. For our panelists today, I'm Dean Borg. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon. I'm Dean Borg. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
I'm Dean Borg, and thanks for joining us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dean Borg from Iowa Public Television.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for that kind support, especially that I'm so very much aware of the talent convened here tonight. I was astonished and stunned, actually, when I was invited to be here tonight. That's because my career really hasn't been one grand plan. In fact, serendipity perhaps better describes it, but isn't that the nature of news? Stories that I've considered worth telling and letting the audio and video doing the communicating over the years just seem to present themselves. And thankfully, I have a family that tolerates what it takes to have Dad be where the news is. As a political journalist, one of the greatest compliments that I receive is when people tell me, "We can't tell where you stand, which side you're on." And I respond, "Good. I'm doing my job right." I've been exceedingly fortunate to have been taught those principles of journalistic responsibility and fairness by faculty and many, many mentors over the years who have corrected, and believe me, them corrections. Starting with journalism school when I was banned from the football field, practice field, because of some stories that I was reporting. But that's for another day. Thank you for your kindness in providing this unbelievable honor to me. Thank you so much.
You know, the Gold and Silver Circle, it's not so much an award, it is a society of honor.
That's right. It's a recognition of those who've made significant contribution to television well above and beyond that required by their actual jobs.
And that contribution can be in service to the industry, to the Upper Midwest Emmy chapter, to the community, or to the people training for a career in the field.
Our next Silver Circle honorees, Ken Stone and Noel Cedarstrom, have not only had award-winning broadcasting careers, but have helped lead the Upper Midwest Emmy chapter, as well as train and guide the next generation of broadcasters.
Hi, I'm Ken Stone.
Ken's first TV job was at a CBS affiliate in Salisbury, Maryland, market 167. He then moved to public TV in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was here that he produced his first documentary, which earned him his first Emmy.
Welcome to the inaugural broadcast of Newsnight, Minnesota.
In 1994, Twin Cities Public TV hired him as the first show producer for Newsnight, Minnesota. He became one of the co-hosts, and his series of reports on the closing of a Unisys plant earned him an Alfred I. DuPont Silver Baton.
We're talking today about local news.
Oprah once called Newsnight local news done right, although she probably didn't watch this gubernatorial debate from 1998.
Ted Mondale. Okay, let's stop it right now. Let's stop it right now.
Ken served almost a decade on the Academy's Board of Governors. He was the chapter's second president. During his tenure, the chapter expanded into Iowa, created Emmys on the road, and grew its college scholarship program. He spent 7 years teaching at the University of Minnesota School of Journalism. Many of his students are currently working at news outlets in Minnesota and around the country.
Channel 4 News with 5.
And while some of his students thought he bore a remarkable likeness to Ron Burgundy, Broadcast News is the movie he thought was more true to life.
What do you do when your real life exceeds your dreams? Keep it to yourself.
That's such a great line. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ken Stone.
There are so many other people who want to be standing up on this stage with me. They're the videographers, the editors, the producers, and even some of my bosses who made me a better broadcast journalist. And I'm going to just thank a few of them, but first I need to thank the person who helped me become a journalist to begin with. She was my girlfriend at the time. I was 3 years out of college, had a broadcast journalism degree, but hadn't done anything with it. And the truth is, I was afraid to try. Anyway, we're on vacation driving through upstate New York, and we're driving by this small city, Plattsburgh. We saw this TV tower, and at the bottom it was this NBC logo. And that's when Margaret leaned over and said, "Well, you could be working there, you know." That was the kick in the pants I needed. I got my first broadcast job shortly after that. I'd like to thank Ron Hanberg, who is here tonight, for hiring me at Channel 2, even though his first inclination was to hire the other guy instead. So Ron, thank you for letting me talk you out of that. I'd also like to thank Bill Hanley, who's also here tonight, for not firing me, even though his boss at the time, Jack Willis, wanted him to. Bill, thanks for talking him out of that. And I do know that a big reason that I'm here is because of my service to the board and the academy. And it was Hanley who actually got me involved with the board, because I didn't know it at the time, but Hanley was on the Board of Governors, and I didn't know this at the time, but he wanted to get off. So one day he pulls me into a meeting of the board, and I had no idea what I was doing there until I see Hanley slip out of the room, and I get voted as his replacement. But it was through the board that I met Al Timms at the University of Minnesota, and Al gave me the best job I ever had. When I first walked into that classroom, I was sort of bringing not only my expertise, but the expertise of all those people who I'd worked with through the years. But the act of teaching, the give and take with the students, made me really re-examine, re-evaluate everything I'd just done. And so what happened is that my students made me a better broadcast journalist, and they should be up here as well. So with that in mind, I'd like to pose a challenge to them, and I know it may take a few years, but you could be holding that, you know. Thank you.
My Silver Circle story begins on the Minnesota Prairie near Litchfield, where my grandpa Cedarstrom started the family farm in 1917. Beckville Lutheran Church, a short walk away, was at the center of our family life. We kids rode bikes a mile to a one-room country schoolhouse through 6th grade. My roots are also in the North Woods, where my other grandpa worked a mile underground in the Sedan mine. He left us a cabin and sauna built by hand out on an island in Lake Vermilion. The University of Minnesota J School was a perfect fit for me as I learned radio news in my hometown, then radio and TV in Duluth, and all news radio in Minneapolis. At KARE-TV Little Rock in the late 70s, I was the station's first producer and live reporter, some anchoring too. We added helicopter live shots. That helped us in the scare of our lives the day a Titan II missile with a nuclear warhead had a fuel leak and blew up in its silo. 2 years in a row, I reported on snowstorms for the Today Show.
10 inches of snow in the Nashville area, 12 inches at Paris, Tennessee.
Since those on-air days, I've produced thousands of newscasts and led teams in 4 states. At WGRZ-TV Buffalo, it was a great joy to help find a missing elderly couple stranded behind the Iron Curtain in Poland and get them home safe. In '85 and '86, crowds came to watch the news live as we featured communities around western New York. What fun to produce WLKY's newscast live from Churchill Downs on Kentucky Derby Day. At WWMT, our team blossomed, twice named Station of the Year for Michigan. Our coverage of the beginning of the Gulf War named Best Newscast. Our investigation of internet pharmacies showed how a dead man and even the Cedarstrom family cat got a doctor's prescription for Viagra. Our reporter testified before a congressional subcommittee. At KTTC in Rochester, our push for daily news excellence has been recognized with multiple Emmys. Most rewarding? Helping young journalists, being part of our Eagles Cancer Telethon, organizing our Time to Care emergency fund drives.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Noel Cedarstrom.
Well, as you've all seen, I'm a Minnesota guy from the farm country and the Northwoods, living and working in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Duluth, now Rochester, and a lot of places in between. It's a wonderful honor to become part of the Silver Circle here in my home state. Thank you so much. My dad has passed, but he sure would be proud. My mom says she had a clue about all of this. When at age 9, I came home from St. Andrew's Lutheran summer camp and promptly read all the Minneapolis Tribunes cover to cover that had been stored up for a week, just to catch up. This is a dream come true, really, and I have Jerry Watson to thank for this, for bringing me back to Minnesota after 19 years in Michigan. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry is my GM at KTTC. He's now a regional vice president for Quincy Media, Inc., and he supervises something like 10 or 11 or 12 television stations now. I came to Rochester to work for Jerry and this terrific family-owned company, Quincy Broadcasting. This company's led by Ralph Oakley. Quincy's all about journalism excellence and community service. Thank you, Jerry, for all that you do. When I was a young guy on my first TV job in Duluth in 1974, one morning I was handed one of those wind-up Bell & Howell 16mm silent cameras, some of you remember those, and sent to shoot a groundbreaking ceremony that they had forgotten about. Well, I had never shot anything before. I was thunderstruck when I got there because there at the ceremony were the 2 U.S. Senators from Minnesota, Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale, supervising the ceremony. My competitors from WDIO had compassion on this young guy, and they taught me something important that day. They helped me with my f-stop settings, and so in that spirit, a big thank you to everybody who has helped me along the way. I'll never forget witnessing courage in tough times. This courage goes far beyond the newsroom. My GM at WWMT in West Michigan, Dick Appleton, came to my office one day and slid a note with 6 numbers on it across the desk to me. "That's how much advertising has been canceled today," he said. You see, my I-Team reporter, Wendy Salzman, and I had produced this blockbuster investigation on complaints about automotive repair shops. There was a furious backlash from car dealerships who canceled their advertising. Dick's face was ashen. He was a basketball star at Duke back in the day, so he looked down at me from his 6'8" frame and emphatically declared, "This story is why I am in this business. I will get all of them back on the air in a month." And he did. It really takes courage to do what we do. I've seen incredible personal courage. Judy Marquis and I worked together in West Michigan for years on campaigns to encourage women to get a mammogram. The fight against breast cancer started as the 10th woman, then it became the 9th woman, then horribly 1 in 8 women were being diagnosed, and we had to call it the 8th woman. One day Judy got her own terrible news, and she went public with it, fighting back tears as she said goodbye to all her viewers. But she made it through a double mastectomy, a treatment, to the cheers of everybody, and she was back on that anchor desk for many more years. Judy, you will always be one of my heroes. I want to say thanks to all of my great GMs over the years: Jerry Watson, Dick Appleton, and Tom Long, Gil Bittner, Lynn Stoyer, who I followed from Buffalo to Louisville, David Jones in Little Rock. My news directors who taught me so much: Jim Willey, Tim Riddell, Gary Long, Tom Becker, Perry Box, Mike Rindo, Susan Kelly. You probably know some of these folks. To the brilliant Dennis Kendall and the insightful Joe Rovito, who have counseled and guided me over the years. Fellow broadcast journalists who I worked with so closely over the years: Carolyn Long and Mark Frickland in Little Rock, Rich Kelman and the fearless Tony Farina in Buffalo, Rick Little and Brian Trowering in Louisville. In Kalamazoo, Jeff McAtee, Judy Marquis, Alicia Smith, Keith Thompson, Steve Hayes, the late Art Charlton, Kelsey Carlson, who you all know, Dennis House, Brendan Keefe. On our desk, John McCrary, Missy Broderick, and Dan Sheneman, who's now a voice on NBC News Channel. And now in Rochester, Tom Overly, Caitlin Alexander, our terrific, remarkable team at KTTC. Hundreds of people, impossible to name all of them. And to all the young people who I have hired over the years, many now leaping far beyond what we did together, thank you for trusting me with your time and your talent. Mark Albert, Heidi Wigdahl, Abby Boudreau, Scott McFarland, Dan Wolf, now in Duluth, Chris Conti, Kimberly Davis, Mike Sullivan, and dozens of other enormously talented journalists who are spread all over the country. Thank you for your energy and enthusiasm for our work together. To our son Chris and our daughter Nikki, who faithfully became part of broadcast TV projects of all kinds. Most important, to the love of my life, my wife Cindy. She put up with the hours and the craziness that comes with this career, and really all the moves around the country too. So without your love, caring, and support, Cindy, none of this would have been possible. I'm deeply honored tonight. Thank you very much.
When you do come up to receive this award, don't forget, you do go home with some nice prizes, so make sure to take them with you, absolutely. Yes. Well, our next Silver Circle inductees are familiar faces here in Minnesota, and it's not just because they're on TV.
Dianna Pierce and Dave Dahl, our friend, has kept Minnesotans informed on daily news and weather for decades.
But once they step off the desk, they use their personal passions for communities to help local organizations and charities who are helping other people improve their lives across the Twin Cities.
In 1984, News 11 will continue to cover the good news along with the stories you need to know.
She was half of a legendary anchor team that transformed Twin Cities TV.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Majors.
And I'm Dianna Pierce. Welcome to the KARE-11 Ice Desk.
That 20-year partnership with Paul Majors is only part of the Dianna Pierce story.
Everybody has a camera in their hand except me.
Born into a family of California shutterbugs, Di seemed destined for life in front of the camera.
The art of maple sugaring has come a long way.
She worked her way up through smaller markets in New Hampshire, Virginia, and California before landing here in 1983.
A face only a mother could love, right?
Let's all head home and have a BLT and watch that.
The call letters would change, but the team held steady.
Show up and go.
Yeah. Hey, come over here, big guy. I'll show you something. Still a comment.
You couldn't have defined class any better than Dianna.
We have met over 100 remarkable volunteers from all walks of life.
Di won us over with grace and humor.
That's true. I still have fingers left in my, feeling left in my fingers and toes. Apparently not in my mouth or brain, but I can feel my fingers and toes.
She never had the giant ego to kind of push you aside and say, this is my time in the spotlight.
Awesome day to be out here running.
Di was all about coaxing viewers to get up and move. And she set a great example, fighting back from a riding accident that fractured her spine.
Are you okay? Did it hurt when your horse was crazy? All right, hot ribs.
KARE at the fair was a hands-on endeavor for Di, who always rose to the challenge.
Honest, what you see is what you get with Di.
But today, Hiroshima's Peace Park is a place where children can play.
Her reporting took her to far-flung places and into the depths of human struggle.
So it's given me an appreciation that's more than just reading about somebody. It's being in somebody's life.
32 years in the spotlight.
Ryan, I love you dearly. It was before you were born.
Hey. Di never forgot she was part of a team.
Well, it's the people. I mean, that's it. I mean, we're only as good as the people we work with.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dianna Pierce from KARE-TV.
Thank you, everybody. So very undeserved. I appreciate your standing ovation. Thank you. I'm really humbled by this tonight. I never, ever thought I would be standing here. First, thank you to the Board of Governors of the Upper Midwest Emmy chapter of the National Academy of the Television Arts and Sciences. And a big thank you to the staff and my friends at KARE. As I said, I'm very humbled by this honor. When I look back at my time in both radio, I started in radio before I got into television, I can confirm there is no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. And I'm thankful for each step that I was able to take. My journey is reminiscent of a recent stop on a trip around Lake Superior, where I climbed to the top of a lighthouse. At first, the climb was an easy task, and my steps were light. However, as I rose, the steps narrowed, and I needed to hang on to the handrails. There were also moments when I had to stop and catch my breath. And I also stumbled, but I kept going. After I took that last step, though, I was rewarded by a fantastic view. The climb and the effort to get there was worth it all. So this experience parallels my journey tonight. The view that I have from this podium, all of you, is extraordinary. Every staircase journey has a foundation, and I had a lot of help along the way. Tonight I'm grateful for and want to acknowledge my family that is my foundation, Scott, Chelsea, and Devin. Man, what a snotty mess I am. Okay, sorry about that. And I want to also acknowledge the friends who have been my handrails when I desperately needed them, friends who are at my table tonight. They wiped my tears and they made me laugh through it all. And then the friends who aren't here, but they joined me in spirit tonight. Also, I have a grateful heart for my co-workers at KARE, whom I had really the privilege to work side by side with. And then finally, I am humbled by those who supported me in thought and prayer from the first step. As I look out to you who want to follow in my footsteps, I'm happy to share a few thoughts. First, be fearless in honest reporting. It's needed now more than ever. And secondly, use your personal integrity to guide you as you write, shoot, produce, and convey today's turbulent news. Your audience, your community is counting on you. And if your efforts move hearts and minds, then congratulations. Consider that a job well done. And for those who follow me, my encouragement to you is keep climbing. Don't give up. There aren't any shortcuts. Reach for the handrails if you need them. And then finally, two, you will be rewarded with an unbelievable view. Thank you all.
That's what keeps me going. I love what I do.
Dave didn't always love the weather in Minnesota.
Here's a bulletin from the KSTP newsroom.
On May 6, 1965, multiple twisters touched down across the metro.
My mom said, okay, everybody get in the hallway. That's all we had was a hallway, inner hallway.
And that's what stuck with you, and that's why you thought, I got to learn more about this.
It did. It kind of terrified me because I just wanted to figure out what causes these things, these terrorizing things, what causes them to develop, and you know, can you predict them?
Dave went on to graduate from Florida State with a degree in meteorology in May of 1977.
Eyewitness News with meteorologist Dr. Walt Lyons.
Dr. Walt Lyons hired Dave at KSTP 2 months later.
He knew the weather. He was from Minnesota, so the vagaries and peculiarities of Minnesota weather weren't new to him.
And you're not an on-air guy.
No, I wasn't on air. I was behind the scenes person. I was doing all the maps for a guy named Rob Dixon. He was our Country Day meteorologist.
Dave's big break came back in 1979.
Most of the rainfall, though, has been a little bit further to the south.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Hi, this is Dave Dahl reporting live from the KSTP Weather Services.
Over the next 4 decades, Minnesotans learned they could count on Dave to keep them safe.
Dave Dahl standing by with a further update for us.
Yeah,
Dave.
Stan, what?
From the so-called superstorm in July of 1987 that dropped nearly 10 inches of rain in just 5 hours.
As much as 25 to 30 inches of snow.
To the Halloween blizzard of 1991. Dave was there.
Yet for all that's changed over the past 40 years, one thing's remained the same. Dave.
Permanence, trustworthiness, you can count on the guy. He seems to be always there when you need him.
Get another good 20, 30 years out of this, Dave?
Yeah, I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing because I like it so much.
Well, we did work in the I Count on Dave jingle there. We had an entire summer of that. I didn't think we'd get it in there, but I'm glad we did. You know, honestly, I'll say Dave is one of my best friends. He is truly, you hear about people with their TV persona and then how they are in real life. Dave is one of those guys that what you get on the air is exactly how he is. He's one of the most thoughtful, nice, kind, generous people I've ever met in my life, and I'm thrilled to be here presenting this tonight.
And we are so proud to give this honor to Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Dahl.
I can't believe how blessed I am and how honored I am to be here tonight. I'm so very fortunate to be included with such a wonderful group of people that are being honored here. And I believe it was Noel that said, this is a huge group of talent that's in this room. I'm blessed to be able to be in a state where I grew up and to be able to do something that I really, truly love for 40 years. I'm speechless. First and foremost, I want to thank the Hubbard family. They believed in me when I was a young kid right out of college. My first news director, Bob Jordan. Some of these names are going to be familiar to you, I'm sure. And of course, Walt Lyons, who we saw in the video, a great mentor of mine. Taught me some of the ropes. Roy Findon, Dennis Falcon, Gene Rubin, and John Dooley. All those gentlemen helped me, hung on to me, and led me through this wonderful thing we call television news. My wife, Julie, and all my kids. I can't list them all because I only have 2 minutes. But I love them all. They put up with long hours, long days, and they've been there, supported me through the time. I love them. I could tell you about the storms. We saw some of the storms that we covered and some of the other weather events that we covered here in Minnesota. But I have a story that kind of sums up my time at KSTP. My career almost ended before it started. I was there for about 2 weeks. When I first started at KSTP, I was working 12 hours on, 12 hours off. I'd work from midnight Friday night to noon on Saturday, and then midnight Saturday night to noon on Sunday. And I did that for a couple of years. But I was there 2 weeks, just started. And I'd been there for 9 hours. I'd started at 12 Friday night, and it was 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And I'd fallen asleep. So I had my head on my desk, and all of a sudden, I heard this pound on the desk. And I looked up, and there was this gentleman, an older gentleman, with a cigar hanging out of his mouth. And he looked at me and he says, "I want you to cut into programming." And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't. It's, there is a storm outside, but it's not severe." And he said, "I want you to cut into programming." I said, "I'm sorry, it's not our policy. I can't do that." Well, he stormed out, slammed the door behind him. 2 minutes later, Stanley S. Hubbard called me up. I had met Stanley. And he says, "David, did you just say no to my dad?" His dad was the chairman of the board. That was Stanley E. Hubbard. And he goes, "David, next time my dad tells you to do something, humor him and do it." My father passed away a few years ago. And he said, "I don't believe in luck." And that's spoken from a guy who never stepped foot in Las Vegas. He goes, "You're fortunate. David, you're not lucky, you're fortunate." I have to say, Dad, you're absolutely right. I'm very, very fortunate. Thank you.
Let's have one more round of applause now for all of our Silver Circle honorees.
We're going to take a little break here in a moment, but I want you to remind you folks, take a look at your programs. You can see the Upper Midwest Emmy chapter is also honoring students in our region with scholarships and some student awards.
That's right. The silent auction is still open for another hour tonight. Please bid and know that all of your contributions go directly to scholarships for students in our region. We're going to put scholarship and student award recipients on the screen to remind you how your support helps the next generation of media professionals.
Before we go, keep up the great work, everyone. The tagging Midwest Emmys, use that in your social media posts. We'll see if we can be trending tonight. Might be fun. 8 o'clock is when we're going to be back in here, at 8 o'clock, so take a look at what the time is to get things going.
Yeah, we also want to thank tonight's sponsors, Slumberland, and the great staff and crew here at Radisson Blu Mall of America.
So let's take a little break, stretch your legs a little bit, finish your meal, do what you got to do. We'll see you back here at 8 o'clock, folks.